Hi, welcome back to another Crypto Dave video. It's Friday afternoon, which means another weekly crypto roundup video. And before we jump into the stories this week, let's start as always by having a look at the markets quickly. And as we see here, market cap currently about 198.5 billion. That's down, I think, probably about 5.5 billion on last week. So the market has been tracking broadly sideways this last week. Bitcoin dominance up to 56.3. If we take a look down at the actual kind of graphs over the last week, I think I predicted last week, I didn't think that we would be dropping that much lower. What I thought was that we might even see some sort of like slow, maybe sort of small, steady, a little bit of growth over this week. Now that hasn't really panned out, but we've been tracking pretty over the full week, tracking pretty much sideways. We had this additional little kind of drop down towards the beginning of the week that then we recovered from, and it was tracking slowly downwards, but then we had a couple of days of good kind of growth, and it's just today we've had this little kind of pullback again. Everything's sort of exhibited this same kind of dip. I think the only coin in the top 20, and it's amazing to see down here, Dogecoin in the top, not only in the top 20, but having some really good kind of gains. It's had some great gains over the last 2 to 3 weeks. Amazing that something that was sort of started as a kind of meme coin, as a kind of like, you know, a kind of joke coin, is performing really well and outperforming, you know, a lot of these projects, you know, that have all these kind of backing, all these kind of fantastic ideas. So it's you know, I think indicative of the state of kind of crypto markets in general. But a lot of people who were involved in crypto kind of early on have Dogecoin. I remember back in 2013 when I was mining Litecoin before it went over to ASICs, and back then, you know, you could always mine a little bit of Dogecoin. People always had a bit of Dogecoin kind of like sort of sitting around, and it was useful for tipping people on kind of Reddit, and people would kind of throw it around. But it's amazing that I think maybe some of that is because it's been around so long that, you know, there are people that have just, you know, it's sat in a wallet somewhere that they may have kind of lost, or that they're just not doing anything with. They're not prepared to sell. They're not kind of trading it. So maybe that kind of gives a little bit kind of more of a kind of stable kind of value than some of the other kind of coins which are purely speculative kind of investments. But, you know, it's in some ways kind of nice to see kind of Dogecoin doing quite well. Amazing to see it breaking back into the kind of top 20 and above, you know, some really kind of like big projects, you know, above Zcash, above you know, Bitcoin, Ontology, Decred, stuff like that, and Mise Go. So yeah, quite amazing kind of times. But yeah, I'm quite optimistic. We've had this kind of sideways sort of movement this week. We haven't seen any kind of like massive kind of drops. I feel that that sort of 6,000 mark for Bitcoin is probably a kind of floor that it will hold sort of going forward. I'm not saying it won't ever dip below that, but I think we'll jump back up to that kind of level again quite quickly. I know a few people have been predicting a kind of floor, and the first article this week is actually same thing. So this is Mike Novogratz. So he has called a crypto price bottom, and I'm kind of broadly inclined to agree with him. I think we've reached that kind of level, I think, around the 6,000 mark with kind of Bitcoin. I'm not saying that it won't dip below that, and I'm not saying the whole market won't dip lower than it is at the moment. If Bitcoin, you know, has another little flash crash under 6,000 down to sort of 5.9, something like that, then the alts will obviously, you know, plummet a lot more. Ethereum gaining a little bit back over the last few days, and it's had an appalling run over the last kind of few weeks. There's a lot of people saying that a lot of ICOs have got rid of a huge amount of Ethereum. So most ICOs launching tokens launched on the Ethereum blockchain. So most of their money came in Ethereum. A lot of people have been getting rid of sort of Ethereum, which many people are saying is what pushed the price down, particularly in the last few weeks. But it's had some good gains in the last couple of days. But I'm broadly, I think, kind of agree with kind of Mike. I think that we're sort of around or at that kind of bottom. I can't see Bitcoin going much under 6,000. It seems pretty strong support there. When it drops down in a kind of flash crash or a very kind of steep kind of drop, it rebounds above that kind of level pretty solidly. So I think that's a level that we may well hold. I don't think we're going to go down to that 5,000. And, you know, certainly don't think we're going to be going to the sort of $3,000-$4,000 Bitcoin that some people are predicting. Of course, I'm not a financial advisor, so, you know, anything could happen in this kind of market. But I think that sort of 6,000 is a fairly stable kind of base. There's an article here, so he pinged, I think it was this morning or yesterday, that he thought that we'd seen a kind of bottom now. So you can see here, this is the BGCI chart, I think we put in a low yesterday, retouched the highs of late last year, and the point of acceleration that led to the massive rally bubble. Markets like to retrace to the breakout. We retrace the whole of the bubble. So he's calling a bottom now. I think we're pretty much around that. I think the people who are holding now, are people that aren't prepared to sell, really. So there is always going to be kind of a base of people that kind of hold for the long term, who are just like, we don't need the money. We're not doing it as a kind of trade-in, kind of like a daily trading profits or anything like that. They are holding Bitcoin for the kind of long term. So I think that will kind of like maintain some of the kind of price. So first story this week. So Mike Novogratz predicts that we have reached the kind of bottom. What do you think? Do you think Bitcoin and cryptos in general have further to fall, or do you think we're pretty much at that kind of bottom thing and we're going to start seeing maybe some climbs up from this bottom now? Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. But let's jump over to the next story, and that's the SEC. So this was beginning of the week, and the SEC suspended trading in two products. So these are not ETFs. Obviously, we're still waiting for that first ETFs, but these are ETNs. So I've talked about these particular products a couple of times. I talked about them when they were first issued. So these are Swedish issued. They're on the Stockholm Nasdaq Stockholm exchange. They've been around for kind of a while. They were in Swedish krona, and then a few months ago they launched them under US dollars, and they've been available on the US dollar market. And earlier this week the SEC temporarily announced the suspension of trading in these two products, and this is within the US kind of versions. They're still available to be traded, I believe, in Nasdaq Stockholm, but for US investors they've been paused temporarily. The trading suspension will finish on September the 20th, so they will be available then to be kind of traded again. But there was this initial kind of suspension of trading, so it's just over 10 days, 11 days worth. And I think that they were slightly worried, the SEC, that people were getting confused between these ETNs and potential ETFs that they still have to come to some kind of agreement and kind of ruling on. So I think that was one of the kind of reasons. So they've paused trading in these kind of two products for now. It was sort of over-reported, I think, in some ways, that the SEC had suspended kind of trading in these kind of products. It doesn't mention here that these were products that have been around for a kind of long time, that they've just been rebranded into the kind of US market. But anyway, it was a kind of piece that was maybe a little bit more dramatic sounding than the actual reality of the situation. Anyway, let's jump over to the next story, and this is the new Gemini dollar, which is a stablecoin that was launched a few days ago. So this is Gemini, obviously the Winklevoss brothers exchange, and one of the big issues I think this year. So one of the reasons why I think some people were kind of like worried about kind of cashing out, certainly for me. So I've been in the I'm in the UK here, and one of the issues with trading in the UK was getting money back out into pound sterling, basically. So Coinbase now and London Block Exchange now have UK banking kind of licenses, so you can now deposit and withdraw directly into UK bank accounts. You can make use of the faster payments and everything like that. Often you can get your money out in a kind of couple of hours, but back in the beginning of the year you couldn't do that. You had to use, if you were on Coinbase, a lot of people bought into their crypto with, you had to withdraw to a Euro wallet. You then had to do a SEPA transfer over to kind of a UK kind of pounds. It could take several days. It costs obviously a reasonable amount of money. I think it's about 20 quid every time you want to do a SEPA kind of transfer. And the other issue, so it was difficult to get money out into your UK accounts. So what people were looking to do a lot of the time, if they were worried about Bitcoin price dropping, was going into Tether. And then the trouble was, back in January, a lot of people were talking about Tether failing imminently. A lot of people were like, it's not back, they don't have the reserves to back up kind of Tether, and it could collapse, and that could bring the whole kind of market crashing down. So there was, I think, maybe a little bit of kind of hysteria. I mean, Tether is still with us. I think there's still some questions about whether it's backed by dollars kind of one for one, but at the time a lot of people were kind of predicting that Tether may kind of crash completely. So the advent of a stable coin like Gemini dollar, which has all the kind of banking sort of kind of background and has all the kind of banking securities kind of behind it, so it's It's a stable coin. It's pegged 1-to-1 to the US dollar. Every dollar that is it's backed by a held at a bank located in the US, eligible for FDIC pass-through deposit insurance, subject to applicable limitations. So it's protected. The money's kind of protected. It's a lot more transparent. This will be a lot more transparent than Tether, and I think it could be quite a popular product kind of moving forward. Now, in the long term, I don't think stable coins are really going to do a huge amount for cryptocurrency in kind of general. I think, within the next kind of year or so, it's going to be so easy to get money in and out and back and forth from kind of fiat to crypto and from crypto back to kind of fiat, that maybe holding stuff in stable coins won't be that attractive for the average user, apart from people maybe trading. But at the moment, certainly in a lot of countries where it's not that easy to get your crypto back out to kind of fiat, being able to kind of like switch into kind of a Tether or another stable coin such as this Gemini dollar, and there was another stable coin launched on the same day, I think is probably quite an attractive kind of prospect. And I think this will probably eat into Tether's market share. It's actually running on the Ethereum network as well, so it's quite an interesting development. I think this will take a massive amount of Tether's share going forward. I could see the Gemini dollar being having a far bigger volume than Tether maybe in the next kind of 6 to 9 months. But yeah, interesting to see that that's a launch. It got approval beginning of this week, and that's now live and trading. And over to the next story, another banking. Seems to be a lot of financial stories this week. This is a Morgan Stanley. So this is not necessarily true, but it came out earlier today, or was it maybe yesterday evening? And their sources basically close to Morgan Stanley say that they are preparing some swap products. So these are derivatives. So this is not a sort of genuine BTC kind of product, but they're going to be kind of Bitcoin derivative products. So basically, much like futures and stuff like that, they will be based on Bitcoin's kind of price, but you're basically kind of gambling on increases and decreases in kind of Bitcoin's price rather than actually purchasing or selling kind of Bitcoin directly. And my gut reaction is that the more of these products that come out, maybe it helps pave the way for kind of ETFs and institutional money and stuff like that. But I don't think this does, in many ways, crypto a huge amount of kind of favors. You can get involved with one of these kind of products. You're basically just gambling on the increase or decrease in kind of price. You're not having to purchase Bitcoin or, Morgan Stanley as the underlying kind of provider is not having to buy kind of Bitcoin. So it adds volatility, I think, sometimes to kind of the market, which is kind of unneeded because it's a very volatile market already, but it doesn't give any of the benefits of institutional money actually kind of buying up and holding Bitcoin in the long term. So be interesting to see if this gets kind of approved, if indeed they are planning to kind of launch it. As I said, it's only kind of a rumor, but they haven't come out and said it's not kind of true or anything like that. So it'll be interesting to see if they do. But I think as we go forward, depending on what happens with the ETF, and obviously the 20th of September, so we've got a week till the Chicago based one, that's CBOE, is it? ETF announcement. I think they'll probably kind of come out a day or two before that. That they seem to have done recently and given either a kick into the kind of long glass or a refusal. But until that comes out, I think kind of like people that and the financial institutions that want to get involved, that think there's money to be made within kind of cryptocurrencies, will be looking at alternative kind of products. So if we can't get an ETF, then undoubtedly they will try and get around that by offering some kind of products similar, maybe in some kind of nature, but around the kind of rules that they can get away with kind of launching. But I think in the long term, I don't think these kind of products really do anything for cryptocurrency massively in the kind of long term. But interesting to see a company like Morgan Stanley getting involved in the space and potentially launching a derivatives type product. And anyway, the last story this week, this is Atomic Wallet. Now this was, to be honest, I don't know a lot about it. I just read a story earlier today that Smart Cash was launching on the Atomic Wallet soon, I think in the next kind of week or two. And obviously I have Smart Cash, I run smart nodes and stuff like that. So that's why I was interested about this. But it's a wallet, it looks, from the kind of screenshots and stuff like that, very much like something like Exodus. So it's available on different platforms. You've got Windows, Mac, various Linux platforms. I believe there's a mobile, so mobile Atomic on both App Store and Google Play as well, which is quite nice. But the interesting thing about it is that it has atomic swaps built in. So something like Exodus uses, does it use Changely or Shapeshift? I think it might be Shapeshift, in order to move between kind of currencies within the wallet. So one of the nice things about Exodus, if you don't mind paying the quite large fees that Changely, I think it's Changely, or it might be Shapeshift, I forget now, I haven't used it for a while. But if you want to kind of like, switch some of your Bitcoin into one of their other coins, you don't have to, withdraw it to an exchange, do that, perform your kind of transactions and then kind of move back to the wallet. You can do it all in wallet, and this atomic wallet looks really good because you can do a lot of the coins that support atomic swaps. You can actually do transactions between coins using atomic swaps, and obviously one of the benefits of atomic swaps, they're completely decentralized. You don't therefore need any of the know your customer and stuff like that a lot of these third-party products, and obviously we've had this with Shapeshift and Changely, they're now moving to rather than being anonymous products, ones where they will have to do a kind of know your customer and the anti-money laundering kind of procedures. So atomic swaps allow you in a completely decentralized way to swap between currencies that support them. So you've got stuff like kind of Bitcoin, Litecoin, various others that do an atomic kind of a swap. So that's built into this wallet. It's a while since I've done a wallet video. I did one a while ago talking about the different types of wallets for different kind of purposes. I talked about kind of hardware and paper wallets, web wallets, sort of like desktop and stuff like that. So I'm going to download this and have a kind of play with it. It looks potentially quite interesting, and if it is, then I'll do probably a follow-up video about the atomic wallet. I don't know if anybody else has heard of it, has kind of come across it. It rings a bell, but it's not something I've ever properly taken a look into. But if you do use it, let me know in the comments below. Let me know what you think about it. Be interested to know your opinions. Anyway, that's it for this week. I've waffled on a little bit, so apologies for that. Hopefully we're going to see some decent consolidation again over the next following week or two. Let me know what you think below in the kind of comments. Do you think we've hit that kind of bottom? Do you think that cryptos are not necessarily about to kind of break out, but that we've seen this sort of like the worst of the kind of bear markets? Do you think we're going to trundle along at the bottom, or do you think we're going to start seeing maybe a bit of a bull run? Anyway, let me know in the comments below. Thanks very much for watching. Give me a thumbs up. That would be great. And hopefully I will see you on the next video. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.